Everyone, Steve here at the TheDjLab, and what a messed up day, man. Obviously, by now you heard about down in Washington, that passenger jet that we now know had a bunch of Russian figure skaters on it crash into a BlackHawk helicopter. It was a military helicopter. What's going on, Alonzo? What's going on, Jamie? So these guys crashed into a military helicopter that was at nighttime doing a training mission, and over at Ronald Reagan Airport. And so these guys they run this little route in between. That's like a really narrow route that they have to run, and they do a lot of stuff for VIPs and stuff, and they shuttle people around with these Blackhawks. And who knows what happened, but I was just kind of watching the news. Now these guys they're over talking about the pardon and stuff. So I'm going to try and find something. Switch over to one of the other channels here and see if we can find something. Let me just give it a little check here for a second. They were just talking about all the new updates, but it seems they care more about these January 6th pardons, which is kind of ridiculous. Like, it's not the time right now to be talking about this stuff. Everybody's on that. So it's kind of a little bit weird. Does France give a damn? Nope, still talk with those hearings, man. I think one of the other news outlets might actually give a damn, but Americans love their politics. They don't really care. They don't really care when someone's getting shut down, you know what I mean? It's weird. See if Newsmax is saying anything here. News Nation. Oh, now we get some breaking news here. There we go. Let me get the audio over here.
Yeah, it's especially at nighttime when they first arrive there, you're dealing with two different aircraft that have spread a debris field over a distance. And because these aircraft were a little bit lower, they weren't, I think they were around 300 feet when they collided. So the debris field wouldn't be as large as if they were higher up in the sky. However, there is a current on that river that potentially could have carried some of the debris down the river. But when they get out there, as you can see right here from this video that you see right there, it's a totally different world when you get into the water and around the water, and you're trying to get out there as fast as possible, assess the situation, and look for survivors. It's so dark on that water that when you get out there, you're not making it up as you go along. They have standard operating procedures. They have training that they've gone through for these rescues. But when you get out there, you really do have to take it step by step, rely on your training, and then see what you can identify. And in this case, I think it was just the impact in the air between those two large aircraft going at a considerable amount of speed, and then the impact into a shallow portion of the river where I would believe that they actually hit the bottom. At least the plane in 7 feet of water would have hit the bottom and cause even further catastrophic damage to anybody inside.
Wow, it's hard to really comprehend these details. How big of a factor, Jonathan, does the ice become in this?
Well, I don't see a tremendous amount of ice. It's not like the crash that they had in the Potomac when an airliner hit the bridge, and they saved a few people from that one. This one's not as quite iced over, but there's just a cold in general. That temperature of water, after really for most people a few minutes, you're going to start to go hypothermic. And then if you're injured at all, if you are if your body is starting to shut down or anything's going on in your body, it's just going to be amplified, and that cold can definitely take a person's life within 15 minutes or less.
We're looking at some new video on our screen of the moment of the midair collision and the then explosion as that American Airlines jet was en route for landing. The light of day will also change how the first responders go about this task of recovering the aircraft and also the bodies of those who were on board. Exactly, take us through sort of the process. Are they able to use drones at this point?
Let me just hop in here for a second here, turn this down. So I don't know if you guys, where you're from, if you saw any of this stuff, but I was watching this last night, and my buddy Nerd Report there, Lewis, was doing his whole news story on it, and I thought, this is pretty important stuff. Like, we should be making sure everybody knows about it. We question what the hell happened. It was a military helicopter doing a training exercise. This was, there was 60 people on board plus 4 pilots. And now there's reports today that it seems like, I don't know if everyone on the flight, but there was a figure skating team from Russia. And there are 2 coaches. Well, I don't know if it's just 2 coaches, but I know 2 coaches for sure that they named. And you got to ask yourself, how the hell does that happen, man? You think with all the technology that we have and radar and towers, and the tower did reach out to tell someone. Who gutted it, man? Was it Trump? So we got to figure out, what the hell happened. Because, and it could have been, my guess, what I'm thinking, because they told the guys to pull behind the plane, right? Maybe it was just literally not even pilot error. Maybe it was actual mechanical. Is it possible that, you went to go move the stick end? Because I watch enough movies with BlackHawks, man, and you see BlackHawk helicopters are pretty agile. They can move pretty quickly. They can move pretty damn fast, dodge missiles and all kinds of stuff. So watch, there it is coming. You see that? That's crazy, man. I know some people didn't want to show it out of respect for the families and stuff, but I just couldn't imagine. And they say flying is one of the safest forms of transportation, but that's just fucking bananas. See what these guys talk about.
The airliner was on a direct line for landing, and they had already been cleared, so they had the right of way. But for some reason, the helicopter did not see the plane, and it appears as though they did not answer the instructions. So I think there's some breakdown in communications there, either on the part of the air traffic controller or the helicopter itself. And I think that's where a lot of answers are going to come from.
Yeah, indeed. All right, well, we'll wait for those answers here shortly. Jonathan Gilliam, thank you so much, sir, for your time. I appreciate you stopping by. We are about 15 minutes away from hearing from President Trump on the investigation and also just his remarks to the American public. He's been on social media, but this will be the first time we hear from him, so we'll be covering that live as we continue to monitor the recovery efforts in the Potomac. All ahead here on News Nation.
Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace.
Nobody likes a cracked windshield. But at least you can go to safelight.com and schedule a fix in minutes. Go to safelight.com and schedule a replacement today.
Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace.
Slow down.
Cut! I get it. Slow motion. Slow down geographic atrophy. But we don't need gimmicks. Stick to the facts. GA, the advanced form of dry AMD, can irreversibly damage your vision. But Syfovre is an FDA-approved eye injection that gives you the power to slow GA. Syfovre was proven to slow GA lesion growth over 2 years with increasing effect over time. It's the only treatment to slow GA in as few as 6 doses per year.
Don't take Syfovre if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye that may include pain and redness or are allergic to it. Syfovre can cause severe allergic reactions.
Thanks, buddy. Here's what I was going to say about the water thing. That's a strip that's meant to fly over, from what I heard on the news, because you got the airport there, the Pentagon's nearby. Like, there's a lot of restricted airspace. So, and I would imagine if you're going to make flight paths, you're going to do it over water, just in case something ever happened that, you're not wiping out a bunch of people below. So maybe that's why. That could be one of the reasons why it's like that. I don't know. Not really sure, to be honest. And apparently, like, in 15 minutes or so, Trump's going to talk about this whole thing. Like, what's he going to say, right? You never know with this guy, man. You never know what kind of shit's going to come out of his mouth. Let me just check some of the other channels here. Talked about Kash Patel as the FBI director. Like, I don't even know why they're talking about that stuff, man. The one thing I can say, everybody that says that Trump is a racist, well, that looks like an Indian guy to me, that he is trying to get in to be the FBI director. So, I don't know, you know what I mean? And even the vice president's kind of funny that, what's that guy's fucking name? I can't think of his fucking name. That's how much of an impact he made when people said he was a racist. And then you see his wife, I'm like, I think she's an Indian. So, I don't think, I think the media, man, they talk a lot of stupid shit. Oh, hold on. Here we go.
Last night, just prior to 9 p.m., an American Airlines flight colliding with a military helicopter. 67 people believed to have been killed in this tragic crash. Among them, members of the Skating Club of Boston. 6 of their members, according to that organization. 2 Russian figure skaters and coaches as well, along with parents and coaches on board that plane that had left Wichita, Kansas for Washington, D.C. In addition, the 4 members of the UA Steamfitters Local 602 also posting on social media that the loss of their members on board that flight as well. That's a group that installs and maintains pipes. They're based in Prince George County, Maryland. So reporting coming in on some of the victims involved and the family members that will be impacted by this tragic crash. Our thoughts with them and also with the first responders in this ongoing recovery effort. As we approach the top of the hour, you can see the podium where we expect President Trump to come out shortly. We'll be bringing that to you live here on News Nation. Meantime, Kelly Meyer is there in the briefing room with an update ahead of the president's remarks. Kelly, good morning to you once again. What more are you hearing from your end?
Yeah, good morning, Marty. So we are all filling up inside the briefing room as we're expecting to hear from President Donald Trump here at the podium. The presidential seal and flag are there already set up as we are waiting for him now about 10 minutes out, 11 a.m. Eastern here in Washington. The room itself is pretty full with journalists and getting ready to ask him questions around just how something like this happened. And he even tweeted overnight asking those same questions. He did say again this morning on a Truth Social post that he has been briefed on this and he will will continue to be briefed, and then shortly after that announcing that he was going to speak to members of the media directly about this. So we will hear from him. We've also heard in the video message from the Secretary of Defense talking through exactly what went on in terms of what they know right now in the investigation, saying that these were fairly experienced crew members
My bad,
on
I
that
keep turning the
BlackHawk,
goddamn microphone
and that they
down.
were also
Sorry,
wearing
guys.
night vision goggles too. He says that there is an investigation ongoing, and he believes that they will be able to find out from that what the altitude was and what might have led to this deadly crash that we have seen here just miles from the White House. At that
So right now what's going on is we're waiting for Trump to come on, and I have a Stream Deck that I don't have plugged in because I don't have enough USB ports. What I had to do, by the way, if anybody ever wants to know how to do this, I'm using a Fire Stick. Let me get rid of that commercial for a second. So I'm using a Fire Stick, and if you plug a Fire Stick straight into the Camlink 4K, it doesn't work. It knows. It knows. So what I have, the thing was like, I think I paid like $15 or some shit for it. But they sell them on Amazon. It's an HDMI splitter. So the idea is that you can put an HDMI cord in, like your input, and then have two outputs. So you can like split it to two different monitors or TVs, right? So one of the advantages of this thing is whatever protection, I forget what they call that, but whatever shit that they have in it, when you plug the Fire Stick into that and then you split the signal, all of a sudden the 4K Camlink does not know that it's got some kind of shit that it's not meant to record and copy stuff. So it's pretty kind of cool. I haven't really used it much, to be honest, like this. I thought this is a good time to give it a try. Maybe even I'll use this thing to you know, record some stuff and have it for later, because my girlfriend's always missing the young and the restless. And you know what? There's a big YouTube channel, I swear to God, this guy gets like millions of views, and he streams the young and the restless every day. The guy's been doing it for years. He doesn't get taken down, and he's making crazy money. There's commercials like a motherfucker on it, and he's doing something where he's fooling YouTube by zooming in and zooming out. It's doing this like zoom in at different points of the screen and out, which obviously is confusing YouTube, so it doesn't recognize, you know, because if you just play a straight show, like I'm taking a chance here. If you just play a straight show, it'll be fucked up. Like it won't work. But the zoom in and out this guy's doing, and it's really annoying to watch. And there's a commercial like every fucking 30 seconds. And my girlfriend, if she misses it, she'll watch that bullshit stream. And I thought, I need to do this fucking, I need to do something like this, man, because it's bananas. Obviously, I can't do it on, I wouldn't do it on this channel. I'd make another channel for that shit, just in case it got fucked up. We're still in commercial break, by the way, just in case you're wondering what's going on while we got the black screen. I figure start showing commercials, and that might be where things kind of fuck up on us. So what's going on with you guys other than all this crazy news down in the States? And did you see the link, by the way? There was people asking how to become a member of the channel for $2 a month. And there's the link. You can just click that link up there and it will take you straight to it. So I kind of hope to see some of my regulars like sign up. Because, you know, once you do it, it's $2 a month. You can cancel it anytime you want. And you're never going to see it. Like I was saying on my stream yesterday, I could throw a toonie out my window every day of my life, and it would not change my life. You know what I mean? So $2 a month, we all burn at least, at the very fucking minimum, $2 a month on nothing. So you could be spending $2 a month and helping me out here. We got the stream back again. What's going on here?
American Airlines flight colliding with a BlackHawk helicopter. The search now for the bodies and the victims on board. There are no survivors, according to investigators at the scene. Among those on board the aircraft were members of the figure skating community. Tara Lipinski, an Olympic figure skater, saying her heart is broken for the skating community. Johnny Weir, also an Olympic figure skater, saying praying for everyone affected by this tragic accident. As we wait to learn more about the investigation and those final communications between the aircraft in the hours ahead, our thoughts are with all of these families and those impacted. The president's remarks straight ahead here on News Nation Live.
All right, this guy's gonna find him. Like, oh.
Who has more subscriptions?
We're a package deal, baby. And your subscription is my subscription. Yeah. All right? We have about 100. But with Experian app, they can help cancel those subscriptions that we don't even need.
Okay. So we're still waiting on this shit. Lots of commercials. You know something I gotta say? This is gonna sound horrible, but when people say, "Oh, I'm praying for the family," you know, my thoughts and prayers, these are just words. Do you honestly, is there anyone? I'm sure there's someone, but like, how many people are literally, probably all flaking out here, how many people are literally on their hands and knees looking up at the sky, praying to God to help that poor soul through the pain and the sorrow that they're suffering, and give them the strength, and, you know, pray for the souls that they're being led into heaven? I don't know. It sounds fucking like an asshole thing to say, but thoughts and prayers don't do a fucking thing for nobody. You know, like, you want to help out the victims of the families, you start GoFundMe pages, you know, you raise money, you send money, shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, real tangible things that people might need. You know, like, your kid's a figure skater or some shit, and they didn't say the ages, but, you know, obviously everyone's got parents, you know what I mean? And your loved one, shit like that happens. And they got to do the big investigation, because, like, really, if it's the military's fault, they're going to sue the living fuck out of them. They're going to sue them. They might not even need to sue them. The government got money, like, no end to it. They might just piece everybody right off. And then, of course, conspiracies are going to come about, oh, that's Russians. Like, I don't think there's any conspiracy to any of this shit. I think you're going to find out it was either a mechanical failure or just fucking pilot error. That some training mission guy fucked up. Because, like, they're calling it an accident at this point, right? It's an accident. An accident is just somebody that fucked up. You get into a car accident, it's because someone did something the fucking wrong way, and it was just an accident. Like, no, somebody wasn't paying attention, somebody was distracted, or you do, of course, once again, you got mechanical failure type of accidents where, you know, I tried to move the fucking helicopter and it didn't respond. That's, you know, not that it makes a difference. At this point, the people have passed away, you know, like, it's a tragedy. So it doesn't matter how, but I guess, you know, when your loved ones are there, they passed away, you want to know what the fuck happened. So hopefully the best news, which isn't good news at all, either way, is just it's a mechanical failure, and it wasn't because someone's just fucking not paying attention. And if it's mechanical failure, it's like, okay, don't these things get fucking checked? Here we go back again. See if this guy's going to talk some shit or not.
President Trump will be speaking for the first time to the American public about this tragic and devastating aircraft situation, an accident in Washington, D.C., the mid-air collision between the American Airlines flight and the military helicopter that crashed last night just before 9 p.m. We have team coverage. Tom Dempsey is on the scene where the recovery effort continues. They don't believe, sadly, there are any survivors from this crash. Joe Khalil also on that scene along the Potomac River, and Michael Frank is standing by. He's a pilot and owner of Elite Rotorcraft. Tom, I want to start with you and where you are right now. I know it's a difficult task for these search and recovery teams in this cold water. What have they been able to recover so far from your vantage point?
Hey, good morning, Marnie. Yeah, as we wait for President Donald Trump to arrive at the White House for that press conference, we want to give our viewers sort of a glimpse where we are. We're at Haines Point in Washington, D.C., which is about the closest that media can get to this recovery operation as it's happening at this minute. Right now, the Coast Guard is helping to coordinate everything. But, Marnie, there are hundreds of emergency crews out here at this point. Emergency crews from a local level, state level, even a federal level. Out here. And to give our viewers a glimpse as to sort of what they're doing right now, investigators say that this fuselage of the American Airlines flight is in 3 different pieces, giving you a clue as to how bad this damage was and just how bad the crash was. And these emergency crews are working on going through waist-deep water, trying to find any sort of debris right now. It's not just crews, though, that are out there. We have boats that are out there. There are helicopters being used in this recovery operation. And I wouldn't be surprised, too, if there's drones being used as well to give sort of an overhead glimpse as to this is happening right now. But we are also following sort of just how intricate of a process this is right now. It's been interesting seeing how the conditions have improved throughout the morning. But earlier today, Barney, there was literally ice floating over the Potomac River where this recovery operation is happening. This is not easy for these crews. It was very dark overnight as they were doing this, very cold overnight. We were at a marina earlier today, and all the media was actually told to get out of there because it's now considered a crime part of this whole scene. They refer to it as a crime scene, but it just shows you how massive of an area, because that marina was somewhat south of this airport where this happened. And, the crews right now are focusing on, any sort of area where this debris could have floated down. And they're even going down to this bridge that's even further south in Alexandria, Virginia, where this parts of the plane could have ended up as well. But the helicopter also very much part of this recovery operation as well. And one source tells News Nation that the helicopter is actually upside down. So again, going back to this is not.
All I really want to do, I just want to see what Trump's got to say with the whole thing. And how will he twist it? How will he turn it into something it's not? Because the guy's pretty good at that. I gotta say, all the American presidents, the only one I've ever, as a Canadian, the only one I've ever given a shit about watching is Trump, because it's like watching a train wreck. You know it's going to be fucked up, but you just can't help it. You can't help but to look at this shit. And don't forget, if you're in here, you double tap your screen, you hit the like button. I'm providing content once again today on a day that I have other things to do. And this isn't for the views or anything. I do just want people to see what the hell's going on and give you my take on things. I don't got much of a take, but, a lot of Americans are, it's interesting how we're so concerned about what happens in the United States as the Canadians. Meanwhile, they're about to fuck us over. And I wish, the American government would understand, like, we actually give a fuck when shit happens up here. You guys down there don't give a fuck if something crashes in our fucking city. Nobody gives a shit. But yet, when it's the United States, the whole world's watching, and, we're your fucking neighbors. We're like your best fucking friends in the world. You know what I mean? When you guys have a fire, the big fires in LA, we sent our planes down. We sent our fucking planes down. When we had fires up here in Quebec, big fucking fire, man. Big forest fire. And have all these fires. You don't send nobody. Nobody fucking comes to us because we don't need you. We got the shit. You know, we got it under control up here. When you have a fire, and I pray, I don't want to say I pray, but I do fucking hope our government, with all this shit, you have lots of resources, you got all this shit. Don't send nobody down. Justin Trudeau, fuck off. Don't go trying to suck his dick and kiss ass. Stay out of it. Stay out of it. We don't need to send any Canadians down there to search and rescue. There's no one to rescue. It's just recovery, search and recovery at this point. So, don't even put the fucking offer on the table, man. Fuck Trump. Sorry, Americans, but you voted that guy in, and he's trying to pull all this bully tactic shit with tariffs. Like, fuck that. We don't need that bullshit. Trump's like fucking late as usual, right? Where is this guy? And then, of course, you know, they have the White House person basically fucking sitting there telling everybody what to not say. I'm sure. They probably tell them what not to say. Let's see what's going on here.
As I'm looking, again, it is quieter here. We haven't seen activity in a while, but you look at those tents, you see the emergency vehicles, Marnie, and it is the tragic and just human reminder, the human cost of this awful, horrific tragedy here, as they are recovering bodies and, you know, having to identify them one by one. So that work is going to continue, and we're going to be monitoring as well for updates. Hopefully, you know, they're able to recover more than the 28 that have already been reported. And we're going to be on that too, Marnie, as we watch the slowly developing
Trump, where are you?
us.
Yep, and an important and daunting task, but critical for the families involved. The cost of this and the emotional toll that it will take on so many will be forever for their lives. The skating community in particular will be impacted by this group of athletes in a tight-knit group. We're hearing from some Olympic figure skaters about this tragedy and the 6 members of the Skating Club of Boston who were on board that flight. Tara Lipinski, a name that you'd be familiar with if you've watched figure skating. She's been in the Olympics. She says, "My heart is with the families affected." She has no words. Strength and love don't do it justice, but so many on this tragic flight. Her heart aches, she says, for them and for everyone in this devastating accident. Johnny Weir, also an Olympic figure skater, on Instagram saying he's praying for all those affected members of our skating community on this flight returning home from nationals in Wichita. We mourn their loss and we pray for their families and their loved ones. Joe, to you, stand by, and thank you for that update. Meantime, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says that the National Transportation Safety Board will oversee and lead this investigation, this next phase. Prior to the collision, though, he says the flight paths were normal and there was nothing unusual. He didn't have a comment on potential blind spots. There was communication between the aircraft and the tower, and the helicopter, he says, was aware of the plane, but they don't know why the helicopter entered the plane's flight path. And he also said he agreed with the president that this was preventable, but there is still so much we don't know. Here's a part of what he said this morning.
Prior to the collision, the flight paths that were being flown from the military and from American, that was not unusual for what happens in the D.C. airspace. And as this investigation moves forward, we will be able to provide more information to you about the details of that statement.
We have since heard from the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. He says this is an experienced crew that was on the BlackHawk helicopter, the UH-60. It was a training night exercise, and they were prepared for the work that they were out there doing and had the experience to do so. I want to welcome in now Michael Frank. He's a pilot and owner of Elite Rotorcraft. Thank you, sir, for being with us. It's got to be a daunting feeling for a pilot and for the air flying public right now as flights resume in and out of Reagan National Airport. Just give me a sense of where your head is at right now as we all grasp with this tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a tragedy. They'll have to look into what happened. From what I've seen, the plane was doing what he was supposed to be doing. There are specific helicopter routes along that area that we follow when we fly in that area. So there's set altitudes. So the airplanes and helicopters this doesn't happen. So there is separation. So it's going to come down to the route that the helicopter was on and the altitude that he was at or maintaining, and communication with the tower. So generally the tower would call out that aircraft is on base or final. The helicopter would have said they had visual communicator, visual and visual maintaining visual separation, and it would have been up to the helicopter to maintain that visual separation as the airplane's on final, and those pilots are concentrating on shooting an approach to land.
There have been some reports that they were scheduled to land on a different runway, and that may have changed in the final moments. Typically, what would cause a change in the landing and where the plane's coming in?
Generally, I would say, for the airport, if they had, another aircraft taking off and they didn't have clearance. I know in the one video, there's the other airplane taking off from the other runway. So it helps with timing, and depending on where the gate was for that airplane, there's multiple reasons, to that, but it may be that runway was clear and they had some airplanes to get out on the other runway. So that would have been probably the change.
Logistically, in terms of frequency, would they have been on the same line with air traffic control, the helicopter and the American Airlines flight and the pilots?
Yes. Yeah, they would have.
Okay, so then if they had been told, as one of the comms said to Blackjack 3, I need you to land immediately, the other aircraft would have heard that and probably asked why.
Yeah, they would have both heard that. Yes, correct.
Okay.
And the helicopter would have basically, they should have heard the communication with that plane, roughly 10 miles out. So there's a time period there that they should have or would have heard that communication with that airplane. So like when we fly in that area, we know it's busy. As we come down these routes, we have simple things like on our phone, on our iPad, instruments in the helicopter. I can assess what airplanes are coming in and coming into land, and then I can make a assessment and kind of know where that those aircraft are coming in. And if I need to, the nice about a helicopter, if we need to just stop, we can stop and slow down and let those aircraft go by, because they do have the right of ways.
Right, but it's much harder for a commercial aircraft to change course than it would be for a BlackHawk helicopter.
Yes, yeah. And they're on final, so they're concentrating on landing, going through their checklist. So they, they're not worried about the helicopter. As a helicopter pilot, and when we're in that environment, we're the ones that need to be cognizant of where those jets are, especially when we get close to final approach lines.
As you mentioned, a lot of this is visual, but the aircraft does have instruments. I mean, when you get close to something, do they start to sound an alarm?
Well, generally, the jet, as they get below, 1,800 feet, that's disabled, so it isn't distracting to the pilots as they come into land, because obviously there's other jets on the runway, other airplanes taking off, so they probably would not have gotten a warning. They would, these days, a lot of pilots do use their iPads and phones with certain aviation apps. Those apps will give a warning no matter what. So, it's possible, it's hard to say if they weren't using those also. But the jet would not have heard, most likely, a warning due to their altitude and what they were in their stage of approach.
All right. Michael Frank, thank you so much for your perspective. I appreciate it, although sad under these circumstances, certainly. Thank you for your time. Again, we're looking at the briefing room in the White House, awaiting for President Trump to address the media there and also the public. We're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be monitoring that throughout the hour. Once he steps in front of the camera, we'll be taking that live. We'll also be talking to a member of the Wichita Council, where that plane originated last night before the crash in Washington, D.C.
Sorry, guys, trying to get a little breakfast into me here while we're doing this shit. So that's interesting. I had no idea that pilots rely on their phones and iPads or using apps for navigation and shit like that. Like, really? Really? They're using a fucking iPad? That seems a little bit strange. Don't you guys think that's kind of fucking weird? An iPad? Not what I would expect. Speaking of expectations, for some reason, I thought doing this stream, not that that was the intention, I just thought we were going to get way more views. But it's like, people don't give a fuck. I guess. Maybe, it's weird. Like, my buddy Nerd Report, he's got a huge channel. But I watched his stream, and he had like 23,000 views in the hour. But he's a big news channel, you know what I mean? I'm a fucking DJ channel, so I just thought the YouTube shorts that people coming through, this might actually catch the eyes, you know? There's been like 229 views, so it's not really it's not the news that I don't want to say it's not the news. Maybe it's just the algorithm isn't spitting this shit out the way I would expect it to. Doesn't matter. It was I did this for a few reasons. I want to try out my my cam link with this HDMI splitter and the Fire Stick to see if this would work. And I never had a good reason to do it before, so this seemed like a pretty good reason. And okay, we get the breaking news again here.
A safe place to fly, and on your screen now you can see one of the videos that's just come in within the last hour of the moment of this mid-air collision in this airspace at just before 9:00 p.m. last night local time. That American Airlines flight colliding with a military chopper during a nighttime training exercise. This is not the first time a plane has crashed in this area. In fact, in the Potomac River, January 13th, all the way back in 1982, an Air Florida flight crashed, killing 78 people. It was bad weather at the time. As you look at the map from the crash and also from the airport, which has at this hour resumed flights, you can see where the plane was coming in. On approach to a runway landing at Reagan National, the BlackHawk was flying south at the time. There is some reporting that the aircraft had been told to change its runway as it approached. We're waiting to hear from President Trump on the investigation, and that will happen here in the next few minutes. When it does, we'll bring it to you live. The weather conditions also playing a factor in the recovery effort. And sadly, this morning, we were told that this is a recovery effort and that there are, in fact, no survivors. For the community of D.C. and also for the community of Wichita, this is just a devastating tragedy, the depths of which you hope you never have to experience. This flight was en route to Washington from Wichita. The national championships for the skating community were taking place prior to this crash, and they are reeling now with the news that some of their team members were on board this flight. Wichita Council member Dalton Glasscock is with us. I know there are care teams in place at the airport and in your community. My thoughts are with you and so many as we wait to hear from the president and an update on this investigation. Have you spoken with any of the family members directly impacted by this devastating tragedy?
Marty, thank you. We appreciate the thoughts and prayers, and we feel them. We feel the prayers of the country and also the prayers of the world on Wichita right now. Last night, I was at the airport and spoke with a family member that had shown up to the airport, and that's the only family member I've spoken with so far. But we know that a lot of other families are going to be reeling with the tragedy and the information that's going to be coming in the next few hours and next few days.
I know that moment was difficult. Can you share with us how that communication went and other support being offered to families right now?
Well, the particular family I visited with, I knew the victim of the tragedy as well. And so, I mean, all of Wichita is going to have to face the reality that likely our friends, people that we know, our neighbors.
Councilmember, pardon the apology. President Trump is now stepping to the microphone. Let's listen in.
Request a moment of silence for the victims and their families, please. Thank you very much. I speak to you this morning in an hour of anguish for our nation. Just before 9 p.m. last night, an American Airlines regional jet carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew collided with an Army BlackHawk helicopter carrying 3 military service members over the Potomac River in Washington, D.C., while on final approach to Reagan National Airport. Both aircraft crashed instantly and were immediately submerged into the icy waters of the Potomac. Real tragedy. The massive search and rescue mission was underway throughout the night, leveraging every asset at our disposal. And I have to say, the local, state, federal, military, including the United States Coast Guard in particular, they've done a phenomenal job. So quick, so fast. It was mobilized immediately. The work has now shifted to a recovery mission. Sadly, there are no survivors. This was a dark and excruciating night in our nation's capital and in our nation's history, and a tragedy of terrible proportions. As one nation, we grieve for every precious soul that has been taken from us so suddenly. And we are a country of really, we are in mourning. This has really shaken a lot of people, including people, very sadly, from other nations who were on the flight. For the family members back in Wichita, Kansas, here in Washington, D.C., and throughout the United States and in Russia, we have a Russia contingent, some very talented people, unfortunately, were on that plane. Very, very, very sorry about that. Whose loved ones were aboard the passenger jet. We can only begin to imagine the agony that you're all feeling. Nothing worse. On behalf of the First Lady, myself, and 340 million Americans, our hearts are shattered alongside yours, and our prayers are with you now. And in the days to come, we'll be working very, very diligently in the days to come. We're here for you to wipe away the tears and to offer you our devotion, our love, and our support. There's great support. In moments like this, the differences between Americans fade to nothing compared to the bonds of affection and loyalty that unite us all, both as Americans and even as nations. We are one family, and today we are all heartbroken. We're all searching for answers. That icy, icy Potomac was a cold, cold night, cold water. We're all overcome with the grief for many who have so tragically perished, will no longer be with us. Together we take solace in the knowledge that their journey ended not in the cold waters of the Potomac, but in the warm embrace of a loving God. We do not know what led to this crash, but we have some very strong opinions and ideas, and I think we'll probably state those opinions now. Because over the years I've watched as things like this happen, and they say, well, we're always investigating, and then the investigation 3 years later, they announce it. We think we have some pretty good ideas, but we'll find out how this disaster occurred, and we'll ensure that nothing like this ever happens again. The FAA and the NTSB and the U.S. military will be carrying out a systematic and comprehensive investigation. Our new Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, his second day on the job when that happened. It's a rough one. We'll be working tirelessly. He's a great gentleman. The whole group these are great people, and they are working tirelessly to figure out exactly what happened. We will state certain opinions, however. I'm also immediately appointing an acting commissioner to the FAA, Christopher Rocheleau, a 22-year veteran of the agency, highly respected. Christopher, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We must have only the highest standards for those who work in our aviation system. I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre at best to extraordinary. You remember that. Only the highest aptitude, they have to be the highest intellect and psychologically superior people were allowed to qualify for air traffic controllers. That was not so prior to getting there. When I arrived in 2016, I made that change very early on because I always felt this was a job that, and other jobs too, but this was a job that had to be superior intelligence, and we didn't really have that, and we had it. And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. And they put politics at a level that nobody's ever seen, because this was the lowest level.
You'd always taken a shot at those guys,
man. Their policy was
man.
horrible, and their politics was even worse. So as you know, last week, long before the crash, I signed an executive order restoring our highest standards for air traffic controllers and other important jobs throughout the country. So it was very interesting. About a week ago, almost upon entering office, I signed something last week that was an executive order, very powerful, on restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers and others, by the way. Then my administration will set the highest possible bar for aviation safety. We have to have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent, the word talent. You have to be talented, naturally talented geniuses. You can't have regular people doing that job. They won't be able to do it. But we'll restore faith in American air travel. I'll have more to say about that. I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they want them, they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so. This was in January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office. They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program. Then another article, the Federal Aviation Administration, this was before I got to office, recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? These are people that are, I mean, actually, their lives are shortened because of the stress that they have. brilliant people have to be in those positions. And their lives are actually shortened, very substantially shortened because of the stress where you have many, many planes coming into one target. And you need a very special talent and a very special genius to be able to do it. Targeted disabilities are those disabilities that the federal government, as a matter of policy, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring. The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism all qualify for the position of a controller of airplanes pouring into our country, pouring into a little spot, a little dot on the map, a little runway. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan. Think of that. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan, which says diversity is integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's just the opposite. The FAA website shows that the agency's guidance on diversity hiring were last updated on March 23rd of 22. They wanted to make it even more so. And then I came in, and I assume maybe this is the reason. The FAA, which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, a real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation? He's a disaster. He was a disaster as a mayor. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bullshit. The Department of Transportation, his government agency charged with regulating civil aviation. Well, he runs it, 45,000 people, and he's run it right into the ground with his diversity. So I had to say that it's terrible. Then it's a group within the FAA, another story, determined that the workforce was too white, that they had concerted efforts to get the administration to change that and to change it immediately. This was in the Obama administration just prior to my getting there. And we took care of African Americans, Hispanic Americans. We took care of everybody at levels that nobody's ever seen before. It's one of the reasons I won. But they actually came out with a directive, too white. And we want the people that are competent. But now we mourn and we pray and would like to ask all Americans to join me in a moment of silence as we ask God to watch over those who have lost their lives and bring comfort to the loved ones. And I just want to say God bless everyone in this room. This has been a terrible, very short period of time. We'll get to the bottom of it. So we all saw the same thing. We've seen it many times. I've had the honor of hearing tapes. Tapes are scary, very scary tapes. You had a airliner coming in, American Airlines. He was doing everything right. He was on track. He was the same track as everybody else. They came in. It's probably the same track as they've had for 25 years or more. He's coming in the path. And for some reason, you had a helicopter that was at the same height, obviously when they hit, but pretty much the same height, and going at an angle that was unbelievably bad. When the air traffic controller said, "Do you see?" You know, he was talking about, "Do you see him?" But there was very little time left when that was stated. And then also he said, "Follow him in." And then almost immediately after that, you know, seconds after that, there was the crash that took place. Well, you follow him in, that means like everything's fine. Follow him in. You had a pilot problem from the standpoint of the helicopter. I mean, because it was visual. It was a very clear night. It was cold, but clear, and clear as you could be. The American Airlines plane had lights blazing. They had all their landing lights on. I could see it from the Kennedy Center tape. We had a tape up on the Kennedy Center. That seems to be the primary thus far. I'm sure we'll see other tapes because it's such a an area where there are a lot of cameras looking up into the air, into space. So we'll probably see many other shots of it before too much time goes by. But we had a situation where you had a helicopter that had the ability to stop. I have helicopters. You can stop a helicopter very quickly. It had the ability to go up or down. It had the ability to turn. And the turn it made was not the correct turn, obviously. It did somewhat the opposite of what it was told. We don't know that that would have been the difference because the timing was so tight. It was so little. There was so little time to think. But what you did have is you had vision. The helicopter had vision of the plane because you had vision of it all the way, perfect vision of it all the way from at Kennedy Center where the tape was taken. And for some reason, there weren't adjustments made. Again, you could have slowed down the helicopter substantially. You could have stopped the helicopter. You could have gone up. You could have gone down. You could have gone straight up, straight down. You could have turned. You could have done a million different maneuvers. For some reason, it just kept going and then made a slight turn at the very end. And it was, by that time, it was too late. They shouldn't have been at the same height. Because if it was at the same height, you could have gone under it or over it, and nobody realized, or they didn't say that it's at the same height. At the same height, it still wouldn't have been great, but you would have missed it by quite a bit. Could have been 1,000 feet higher. It could have been 200 feet lower, but it was exactly at the same height, and somebody should have been able to point that out. So all of this is going to be studied, but it just seems to me from couple of words that I like to use, the words common sense. Some really bad things happened, and some things happened that shouldn't have happened. So you had a helicopter going in an identical direction. You had a helicopter that was at the exact same height as somebody going in essentially the opposite direction. You had a plane that was following a track, which is a track that every other plane followed. And I don't imagine, I know I've heard today that they might have been following the preceding plane, which was pretty close, but not that close, the preceding plane. But you wouldn't have even been able to see that because of the direction that the helicopter was coming in at. So you had a confluence of bad decisions that were made. And you have people that lost their lives, violently lost their lives. We're going to take a few questions. I'd like to ask our new Secretary of Transportation to say a few words. Sean Duffy, great gentleman, just started. It's not your fault, and I know you agree with me very strongly on intellect and even psychological well-being of the air traffic control. It's such an important position, and I think I can't emphasize stronger. I changed it when I first ran in 2016. I changed it. We had the highest standard that you could have. And then they changed it back. That was Biden to a standard I read it to you. That was from one of your papers. One of the people in this room actually wrote that. And then I changed it back a few days ago. And unfortunately, that was, we'll see. We don't know that necessarily it's even the controller's fault. But one thing we do know, there was a lot of vision, and people should have been able to see that, you know, at what point do you stop? At what point do you say, wow, that plane's getting a little bit close? So this is a tragedy that should not have happened. Please, Sean.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I would just note the president's leadership has been remarkable during this crisis. We've had a whole of government response, local, state, federal. And when you see that kind of cooperation, it begins with the leadership in this body. So thank you for that, Mr. President. You make our jobs a lot easier. You made an important point that when we deal with safety, we can only accept the best and the brightest in positions of safety that impact the lives of our loved ones, our family members. And I think you make a really important point on that, Mr. President. That is the motto of your presidency: the best and the brightest, the most intelligent coming into these spaces. I want to take a moment and extend my condolences to the families of the loved ones We commit to them that we are going to get to the bottom of this investigation, not in 3 years, not in 4 years, but as quickly as possible with the NTSB, who is here today, as well as the FAA. What happened yesterday shouldn't have happened. It should not have happened. And when Americans take off in airplanes, they should expect to land at their destination. That didn't happen yesterday. That's not acceptable. And so we will not accept excuses. We will not accept passing the buck. We are going to take responsibility at the Department of Transportation and the FAA to make sure we have the reforms that have been dictated by President Trump in place to make sure that these mistakes do not happen again. And again, I want to thank you for your leadership, Mr. President, and I appreciate the confidence you placed in me. Thank you.
Pete, would you like to say something?
I just suck him right off, right?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Again, I want to echo what the Transportation Secretary said about your leadership. From the moment we found out about this, we were in contact with the White House trying to determine exactly what happened. I would echo it as well. No excuses. We're going to get to the bottom of this. We first and foremost, from the Defense Department, want to pass our condolences to the 64 souls and their families that were affected by this. Never should happen. And certainly the 3 service members, the 3 soldiers, a young captain, staff sergeant, and CW2, Chief Warrant Officer, on a routine annual retraining of night flights on a standard corridor for a continuity of government mission. The military does dangerous things. It does routine things on the regular basis. Tragically, last night, a mistake was made. I think the president is right. There was some sort of an elevation issue that we have immediately begun investigating at the DOD and Army level. Army CID is on the ground investigating. Top-tier aviation assets inside the DOD are investigating, sir, to get to the bottom of it so that it does not happen again, because it's absolutely unacceptable. But I want to echo what the Transportation Secretary and you, Mr. President, said, because it pertains to the DOD as well. We will have the best and brightest in every position possible. As you said in your inaugural, it is colorblind and merit-based. The best leaders possible, whether it's flying BlackHawks and flying airplanes, leading platoons, or in government. The era of DEI is gone at the Defense Department, and we need the best and brightest, whether it's in our air traffic control, or whether it's in our generals, or whether it's throughout government. So thank you for your leadership and courage on that, sir, and we'll stand by you on it. Thank you.
JD, please.
Watch this guy. He's going to do this.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership. I just want to reemphasize something the President said, and you've heard from the Secretary of Transportation and of Defense. There really was a whole of government response. We were all on the phone. We were all communicating yesterday, trying to get to the bottom of this immediately, but also try to communicate with the American people about what happened. Something the President said that I think bears reemphasizing, which is that when you don't have the best standards in who you're hiring, it means, on the one hand, you're not getting the best people in government, but on the other hand, it puts stresses on the people who are already there. And I think that is a core part of what President Trump is going to bring and has already brought to Washington, D.C., is we want to hire the best people because we want the best people at air traffic control, and we want to make sure we have enough people at air traffic control who are actually competent to do the job. If you go back to just some of the headlines over the past 10 years, you have many hundreds of people suing the government because they would like to be air traffic controllers, but they were turned away because of the color of their skin. That policy ends under Donald Trump's leadership because safety is the first priority of our aviation industry. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, on DEI and the claims that you've made, are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else. And there are things where you have to go by brain power. You have to go by psychological quality. And psychological quality is a very important element of it. These are various very powerful tests that we put to use, and they were terminated by Biden. And Biden went by a standard that's the exact opposite. So we don't know, but we do know that you had 2 planes at the same level. You had a helicopter and a plane. That shouldn't have happened. And we'll see. We're going to look into that, and we're going to see. But certainly for an air traffic controller, we want the brightest, the smartest, the sharpest. We want somebody that's psychologically superior, and that's what we're going to have. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Mr. President, you mentioned at the top of the briefing that there were several Russian nationals on the flight.
Yes.
Will the U.S. government be willing to facilitate the transfer of their remains, considering the fact there is no direct air travel between the two countries?
We've already been in contact with Russia, and the answer is yes, we will facilitate. Yes. Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. The situation in the Democratic Republic of the Congo is getting worse, even though President John Lorenzo has been mediating the conflict between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo because he wants to bring peace and stability.
Why the fuck is this chick asking a question?
Right
Got nothing to do with the fucking
I want to hear
crash.
from this president if you have any plan in the future to bring peace in the Democratic
You're asking me a question about Rwanda, and it is a very serious problem. I agree, but I don't think it's appropriate right now to talk about it. But it is a very serious problem.
Chick. What's wrong with you?
We don't even yet know the names of the 67 people who were killed, and you are blaming Democrats and DEI policies and air traffic control and seemingly the member of the U.S. military who was flying that BlackHawk helicopter. Don't you think you're getting ahead of the investigation right now?
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think with the names of the people, you mean the names of the people that are on the plane? You think that's going to make a difference?
Does it comfort their families?
They are a group of people that have lost their lives. If you want a list of the names, we can give you that. We'll be giving that very soon. We're in coordination with American Airlines. We're in coordination very strongly, obviously, with the military. But I think that's not a very smart question. I'm surprised coming from you.
Are you blaming
please.
Always taking a shot at these
President Trump,
bitches.
thank you for being here. Based on your analysis so far, do you have a sense of who was at fault, if it was the plane, the helicopter, air traffic control, and can you assure people that it is safe to fly in and out of D.C.?
Well, I've given you the analysis, and the analysis was it was based on vision. You had a lot of people that saw what was happening. You had some people that knew what was happening. There was some warnings, but the warnings were given very, very late. Those warnings were given very late. It was almost as they were given. A few seconds later, there was the crash. It should have been brought up earlier. But the people in the helicopter should have seen where they were going. I can't imagine people with 20/20 vision not seeing, what's happening up there. Again, they shouldn't have been at the same height. You're going in reverse directions or sideways directions. Obviously, you want to be at different heights. I see it all the time when I'm flying. You have planes going in the opposite. They're always lower. We're higher. So if somehow there's a screw up, there's not going to be a tragedy. It'll be close, but there's never going to be a tragedy if you're at a different elevation. For whatever reason, they were at the same elevation. And also, from the American Airlines Center, he's along the track that every plane is along. You say, what was the helicopter doing in that track? It's very sad. But visually, somebody should have been able to see and taken that helicopter out of play, and they should have been at a different height.
Thank you, sir. You mentioned the Russians that were on board that plane. What other nationalities were on board that passenger
There
jet?
were a couple of others. We're going to be announcing it in about an hour. We have some very specific information. We're calling the countries. We've spoken to most of them, but there were some other countries represented.
Spoken to President Putin?
I have not, no.
Mr. President,
Not about this.
on your executive order, you've already issued an executive order you say will restore aviation safety.
Right.
This crash happened after that. Was the executive order successful, and what more needs to change to keep people safe?
Well, we issued it 3 days ago, and we're in the process of making those changes. This is something that should have been done a long time ago. Actually, my original order should have never been changed, and I think maybe you wouldn't have had this problem. Maybe.
Oh, look at this guy.
Yeah, please, go
Yes,
ahead.
thank you.
Saying,
you see, like, everyday life,
what if never
that's
happened?
very
Had you
often
listened to me?
Those diversity hires cause sometimes issues, as you just mentioned. So what plan do you have? Are we going to see some fire? Are you going to fire some of those diversity hire in the federal government? What's plan do you have?
I would say the answer is yes. If we find that people aren't mentally competent, you see the language. The language is put out by them. And if you see that, I'm not going to bore you by reading it again, but these are not people that should be doing this particular job. They'd be very good for certain jobs, but not people that should be doing this particular job.
Mr. President, you have today blamed the diversity elements, but then told us that you weren't sure that the controllers made any mistake. You then said perhaps the helicopter pilots were the ones who made the mistake.
It's all under investigation.
I understand that. That's why I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't. We want brilliant people doing this. This is a major chess game at the highest level. When you have 60 planes coming in during a short period of time, and they're all coming in different directions, and you're dealing with very high-level computer work and very complex computers. And one of the other things I will tell you is that the systems that were built, I was going to rebuild the entire system, and then we had an election that didn't turn out the way it should have. But they didn't build the systems properly. They spent a lot of money renovating a system, spending much more money than they would have spent if they bought a new system for air traffic controllers, meaning the computerized systems. There are certain companies that do a very good job. They didn't use those companies. They used companies that should not have been doing it. No, I think it's very important to understand that for some jobs, and not only this, but air traffic controllers, they have to be at the highest level of genius. Okay.
I want to ask you about the ice skaters in a moment because the U.S. Ice Skating Committee was affected. But first, if I can, the cited FAA text that you read is real. But the implication that this policy is new or that it stems from efforts that began under President Biden or the Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is demonstrably false. It's been on the FAA's website. You? No, it's on the website, the FAA's website. It was there in 2013. It was there for the entirety.
What I read.
It was there for the entirety of your administration too. So my question is, why didn't you change the policy during your first administration?
I did change it. I changed the Obama policy, and we had a very good policy. And then Biden came in and he changed it. And then when I came in 2 days, 3 days ago, I signed a new order bringing it to the highest level of intelligence. Okay.
It was on the website.
Please. Quiet.
Welcome back to the. I'm sorry. You mentioned that a vision was probably the problem that was at issue in this crash. There's been some reports that one of the pilots in the helicopter may have been using night vision equipment. Was there any indication?
I heard that. We don't know. We're going to know that pretty soon. It may change your view plane if you do have the night vision. So it's very possible that could have happened. That would be maybe a reason why you wouldn't actually see as well as on a clear night. You can see sometimes better without it. I have a couple of more.
Mr. President, is it helpful to have your Secretary of Transportation confirmed, and does this intensify your interest in getting other nominees confirmed quickly?
Go to what?
Is it helpful to have your Secretary of Transportation confirmed, and does this intensify your interest in getting other nominees confirmed quickly as well?
Well, sure. We want fast confirmations. And the Democrats, as you know, are doing everything they can to delay them. They've taken too long. We're struggling to get very good people that everybody knows are going to be confirmed, but we're struggling to get them out faster. We want them out faster. It's a good question, actually. We've been pushing Sean. Everyone knows Sean for a long time. He got many, many Democrat votes, but they want to take as long as they can. They ask questions like some of the questions that Peter would ask that were totally irrelevant and not very good questions, but they want to just keep it going. They want to keep it going as long as possible. I was very honored, actually, that you got so many Democrat votes. That was really good. It was really good.
When I try to meet with the families, and the second question, is it your impression that military training was done during that time?
The what?
The training that the helicopter was involved in. Is it anything you can tell us about
You
that?
don't know. These are the things that will come up with the investigation. You don't know, but the helicopter obviously was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and a tragedy occurred. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got a question about the...
No, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You've been critical of the current regulations and you've called for big reforms at FAA. I'm curious, sir,
Well, I made the reforms, actually.
what is your message?
3 days ago, I made them.
Yes, sir. What is your message then to the American public in the weeks and months ahead? Should they feel hesitant to fly? And if you could clarify perhaps something that the
What a stupid
Secretary
question.
said when he said that this helicopter was on a continuity of government mission?
I don't know what that refers to, but they were practicing. They do that. They call it practicing, and they were, and that's something that should be done. It's only continuity in the sense that we want to have very good people, and that has to be in continuity, and that's what they refer to. But it was basically practice, and it was a practice that worked out very, very badly. Okay?
On his question, the first question, should people be hesitant to fly right now?
No, not at all. I've not hesitated to fly. This is
Such
something
a
that
dumb
it's
question.
been many years
One
that
fucking
something like
accident
this has happened.
in like all the
And,
times people fly.
The
It's like,
collision
well, shouldn't we be
is
worried?
just something that we don't expect ever to happen.
Like
Again,
there's a
we are
car
going to have
accident. Should you all be worried
the highest
to
level
drive your
people
fucking
we've already
car?
hired.
Yeah,
Some of the
stupid
people that
reporters.
you've
Gotta
already
get their
hired for that
fucking jobs.
position, long before we knew about this. I mean, long before. From the time I came in, we started going out and getting the best people because I said it's not appropriate what they're doing. I think it's a tremendous mistake. You know, they like to do things and they like to take them too far, and this is sometimes what ends up happening. Now, with that, I'm not blaming the controller. I'm saying there are things that you could question, like the height of the helicopter and the height of the plane being at the same level and going in opposite directions. It's not a positive. But no, we're already hiring people. No, flying is very safe. We have the safest flying anywhere in the world, and we'll keep it that way. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much, everybody.
President Trump launching several accusations against the pilots and air traffic controllers, of which we don't have evidence yet, but concern as this investigation continues. The recovery efforts in the Potomac. Much more after a commercial break here on News Nation Live with News Nation Now.
Right, let me throw a commercial in here.
All right. All right, correction. What?
Buying a car is kind of a big deal, but you use the Car Gurus app. That's a price drop alert, so the deals come to you. Oops, big deals.
So that was that, man. That's exactly the kind of media thing I would expect to see Trump do. People ask some stupid questions, but this guy, like, did you hear him talk about dwarfism? That, like, you know, they can hire dwarfs, but it didn't make sense to me, man. Like, I don't know. If you're a dwarf, I would assume that, you know, there's some smart fucking little people out there that have dwarfism. I don't think being short prohibits you from doing your job as an air traffic controller, just to kind of put it out there. The guy, you know, he says some strange things, but he's not wrong when he says, hey, the fucking helicopter, like the plane, this is a flight, the planes go there all the time. What the fuck were you doing there as a helicopter? Why that particular level? How did you not see that thing coming? What the fuck happened? Let's go to Mix Factory. Yeah, welcome to America. Fucking. Just remember, you Americans, I'm an American too. North American. America is the continent. It's not your country. You are the United States of America. But Americans like to kind of, you know, act like they got something else going on. Then again, the Indians like to call themselves South Asians. So I guess I could tell people I'm North American. I don't have to really say I'm Canadian because... Oh, look at these fucking pictures. Look at me. Look at this bullshit. Fucked up stuff, man. But seriously, I don't know. It is what it is, right? It will be interesting to find out what it was. Not once did fucking Trump even indicate, even suggest that, you know what, it could have been mechanical failure. It could have been, you know, the controls did not respond. That feels like that could be something. They're going to know pretty quickly when they get that black box and all this shit. So we'll see. Now that Trump's gone, everybody's jetting. So I'm going to jet too. I got some shit to do today. And I don't want to keep beating on this over and over and over. Because it was a horrible thing. Anyone that says thoughts and prayers don't do much, man. I imagine once they start announcing the families and the victims and stuff, there'll be some GoFundMes and there'll be some kind of online campaigns to help people out. So if you want to help, that's the way to do it. Thoughts and prayers, like I'm thinking about it. You know, I'm sharing the news, but I'm not praying to anybody. Like, it's too late for that. You know what I mean? If someone's gone, they're gone. There's no bringing that shit back. So, maybe if I can get enough things done today, perhaps I'll come on a little bit later and I'm going to do a master class on something. I don't know. One of the pieces of equipment. Depends on how much I feel like hooking up. So I'm going to fade the black, finish my fucking hot chocolate here. And I'll see you guys later.